Nathan Cole stood before the Galactic Council for the last time. His tall frame seemed to cast a longer shadow than usual across the polished chamber floor. Around him, representatives from 27 advanced civilizations watched with expressions ranging from amusement to indifference. The United Earth government has made its decision. After 30 years of membership, humanity will withdraw from the Galactic Council effective immediately, Nathan announced, his voice steady despite the murmurs that rippled through the chamber. High Counselor Vexthar of the Vrexian Empire clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter in his species. The humans retreat to their tiny corner of the galaxy. How predictable. Nathan's expression didn't change. We've submitted our formal withdrawal. All human colonies, outposts, and citizens will be returning to our designated systems within the standard week. So quickly? Asked Mira, the elderly Meroxy representative. Unlike the others, concern lined her features. Ambassador Cole, surely there is room for negotiation. Our decision is final, Nathan replied. He paused, looking at each council member in turn. You'll miss us when we're gone. The chamber erupted in dismissive chatter. The Scathari delegate, a being of crystalline intelligence, flashed patterns of disdain across its surface. Humans have contributed nothing of consequence during their brief membership. Your species barely mastered faster than light travel a century ago. Nathan simply bowed and walked out, the last human to stand in the council chamber. Within days, the exodus began. Human colonies across 17 systems simultaneously packed up and departed. Trading posts emptied. Research stations went dark. Military outposts vanished overnight. On New Eden, the largest human colony world, Scathari observers watched in disbelief as a population of 12 million loaded into massive ships and departed in perfect order. They left behind empty cities, with lights still burning and fountains still flowing. They're actually going through with it, said junior observer Kirova to her superior. I've never seen a species voluntarily give up territory. Humans are emotional and irrational, her superior replied. They'll return begging for red mission once they realize their mistake. But the humans did not return. Council inspection teams arrived at abandoned human facilities to find them spotlessly clean but completely empty of useful information. All databases had been wiped. Manufacturing equipment removed or rendered unusable. Even basic technological blueprints were gone. On the former human military base on Proxima IV, Vrexian Commander Drez found only empty barracks and powered-down defense systems. His team's attempt to access the base's central computer yielded only a short message. Thanks for all the fish. What does it mean? His lieutenant asked. Some human nonsense, Drez replied. They were always making jokes no other species understood. At the Arcturus trading hub, once bustling with human merchants, Council economists found the sudden absence of humans had created unexpected supply problems. Seemingly minor trade goods had vanished, and several alien businesses had already closed. I don't understand, said Chief Economist Thala. Humans were minor participants in galactic trade. How could their departure cause shipping delays across 3 sectors? Back on Earth, Lisa Brennan watched the last transport ships leave orbit. As deputy director of the withdrawal program, she had overseen the largest migration in human history. All ships report successful departure, her assistant said. The last outpost on Europa has been evacuated. We are officially gone from Council space. Lisa nodded. And the warning buoys? Deployed but inactive as ordered. Good. Lisa looked at the final report on her screen. Humanity had removed itself from the galactic stage in just 7 days. Not a single human remained in Council territory. Do you think they'll figure it out? Her assistant asked. What's coming? Lisa's expression hardened. They had 30 years to listen to us. Now they'll learn the hard way. Outside, Earth's defense grid hummed to life as the planet prepared for isolation. The humans had departed, and soon, the Galactic Council would discover exactly what that meant. 6 months after the human departure, the attack came without warning. Vrexian hive ships appeared at the edges of Valthrian space, their organic hulls bristling with weapons. The insectoid Vrexians swarmed through the outer colonies before the Council could mount a defense. "This is impossible," High Commander Zexthar shouted as reports flooded the Valthrian war room. The Vrexian threat was contained centuries ago. His tactical officer looked up from her display. "Sir, they've evolved. These are not the same Vrexians from our historical records. They have new bioweapons and advanced shielding technology." The Valthrians, proud of their military might, sent their finest battle cruisers to meet the threat. 3 days later, half their fleet was destroyed. The Skitheri joined the fight with their energy weapons, but the Vrexian high ships simply absorbed the attacks and continued their advance. On Galactic Council Station Alpha, emergency meetings continued day and night. Representatives from all member species argued about strategy and resources, while the Vrexian assault spread to 3 more sectors. "Where did they come from?" demanded Council President Jurna. "How did our long-range sensors miss an invasion force of this size?" The Meraxi representative, Mira, spoke quietly. "They came from the direction of former human space." All eyes turned to her. "I believe the humans were containing them." "Ridiculous," snapped a Skitheri delegate. "The humans had no significant military presence in that region." "Then explain this," Mira said, displaying a star chart. "These are the locations of former human military outposts. Notice how they form a line precisely along what is now the Vrexian invasion route." Silent shock filled the chamber as the council members studied the evidence. A junior researcher entered with a data crystal in her hand, her expression troubled. "Counselors, we found something in the archives. 6 human diplomatic missions over the past 20 years requested council assistance for what they called border security operations in this exact region. I remember dismissing those requests," muttered a Valthrian diplomat. "They seemed like human attempts to gain military funding." The Council sent exploratory ships to former human outposts near Vrexian space. They found abandoned bases that showed signs of heavy combat, scared defense installations, depleted weapons arrays, and enormous energy signatures consistent with massive battles. At one outpost, they recovered partial records from a damaged human computer system. The logs detailed hundreds of encounters with Vrexian scout ships and at least 12 major battles with high ships. The final entry, dated just before the human withdrawal, read, "Perimeter holding but resources stretched. Council support request denied again. Withdrawal orders received. May whoever finds this have better luck." The junior diplomat who discovered the logs, a Meraxi named Thala, found another file containing classified reports from a human named Lisa Winters. The reports detailed Vrexian hive patterns, weapons capabilities, and predicted expansion routes, all of which matched the current invasion perfectly. "The humans knew," Thala told the Council. "They were fighting this war alone because we refused to acknowledge it." Council scientist Felix completed his analysis of Vrexian movement patterns. "The evidence is clear. For at least 25 years, human forces were acting as a buffer zone between Council space and Vrexian territory. When they departed, nothing stood in the Vrexians' way. As the Vrexian invasion pushed deeper into Council space, destroying colonies and severing trade routes, Mira remembered Nathan Cole's final words in the Council chamber, "You'll miss us when we're gone." The Council world scrambled to build defenses humans had quietly maintained for decades. Military leaders studied recovered human battle tactics against the Vrexians, desperately trying to replicate their success. But without human guidance, victories were few and casualties mounted daily. The first crisis had arrived, just as the humans predicted. And it was only the beginning. 1 year after the humans departed, the first economic indicators began flashing warning signs across Council space. No one connected these early signals to the human exodus until it was too late. On Skitheri Prime, manufacturing plants shut down without explanation. Complex crystalline components used in faster-than-light drives developed sudden imperfections. "I don't understand," said Chief Engineer Krell as he examined a failed crystal matrix. This formula has worked perfectly for centuries. What Krell didn't know was that the formula had been subtly modified 30 years ago when humans joined the Council. The modified process required trace amounts of a substance called boron nitride, which human traders had supplied as a seemingly unimportant industrial material. Similar problems spread throughout Council space. On Valthria, agricultural production fell by 40% when soil enrichment techniques unexpectedly failed. The Meraxi medical community reported shortages of key medicines. The Jixteri Transportation Guild found their navigation systems becoming increasingly unreliable. Senior economist Drell called an emergency session of the Council's Commerce Committee. "We've identified a pattern," he explained, displaying charts on the chamber walls. "Every failing system has one thing in common. Each was modified or improved during the period of human membership." "Impossible," said Councillor Vex. "Humans were technological infants compared to the great races of the Council." "Nevertheless, the evidence is clear," Drell continued. "Humans introduced subtle changes to thousands of technological and economic processes, changes we barely noticed because they were small and distributed across so many sectors." Council archaeologists began examining abandoned human trade posts. What they found shocked them. The seemingly random goods humans traded throughout Council space had created an intricate web of supply chains, filling critical gaps in interstellar markets that no one had noticed. In the archives, they discovered economic forecasts written by a human trader named Frank Reynolds. His reports had predicted exactly the cascade of failures now crippling Council economies. The Council had dismissed his warnings as human exaggeration. "The humans understood our economies better than we did," admitted Drell. "They saw interdependencies we missed." On the smaller Council worlds, the situation grew desperate. Species like the Brel and Anderi faced extinction as their specialized economies collapsed. Their representatives begged for aid, but the larger Council members struggled with their own crisis. In an abandoned human diplomatic office on Meraxi III, researchers found a sealed message from human economist Olivia Grant addressed to Dreska, a mid-level Council trade official. The message contained detailed plans for economic stabilization in case of human departure. Dreska, now a senior counselor, remembered dismissing Grant's concerns years ago. "She tried to warn me," Dreska told the emergency committee. "She said humans were providing economic stability throughout Council space, but I thought she was overestimating human importance." The committee discovered that humans had established specialized production facilities in overlooked systems, manufacturing seemingly minor components that proved essential to Council technologies. These facilities now sat abandoned, their processes impossible to replicate without human expertise. Trade routes once maintained by human merchants lay empty. Specialized raw materials that humans had mined from inhospitable worlds were no longer available. Financial algorithms designed by human economists had quietly prevented market crashes for decades. "They were never the primitive species we thought they were," Mira said during a Council session. "They didn't dominate through obvious power. They made themselves essential through 1,000 small connections." As the economic crisis deepened, Council archaeologists found one final surprise: records showing that human trade representatives had tried 18 times to formalize these economic relationships through official treaties. Each time, the Council had rejected the proposals as unnecessary. The economic systems the Council had taken for granted for centuries were unraveling without human support. And as resources grew scarce, the once united Council members began looking at each other with suspicion and hostility. The second crisis had arrived, and it was tearing the Council apart from within. 2 years after the human departure, Council technicians noticed something alarming. The most advanced technologies across Council space were beginning to fail. At first, the failures seemed random: communication networks experiencing delays, quantum computers producing errors, medical systems giving false readings. Chief Science Officer Zorn of the Scatheri Collective examined system after system, searching for a pattern. "It makes no sense," he told his assistants. These technologies have functioned flawlessly for generations. The breakthrough came when junior technician Vela discovered a hidden maintenance protocol in the Council's central artificial intelligence system. "It's human code," she said, pointing to the signature algorithms. "It's been running silently in the background of all our systems." Further investigation revealed that humans had quietly introduced maintenance algorithms into virtually every advanced system in Council space. These algorithms had been preventing small errors from becoming critical failures for decades. "Why didn't we notice this before?" demanded Council President Jurna during an emergency session. "Because the humans never announced what they were doing," replied Zorn. "They simply fixed problems as they found them. When a system had a flaw, humans would offer a solution that appeared simple but contained hidden complexity." The Valthrian delegates were outraged. "This means humans had access to our most sensitive technologies." "Yes," Zorn admitted. "And instead of exploiting that access, they used it to keep our systems running better than we could ourselves." Council researchers uncovered a proposal by human engineer Daniel Murphy from 25 years earlier. Murphy had suggested creating shared technological frameworks that would allow all Council species to maintain each other's systems. The proposal had been rejected by the Valthrians and Scathuri as an attempt to gain access to superior technology. What the Council races didn't understand, explained Technician Vela, was that humans weren't trying to steal technology. They were trying to create compatibility. They saw the vulnerabilities in our isolated approach. The consequences became severe as critical systems failed across Council space. Terraforming technology on colony worlds began to break down, forcing evacuations. Medical diagnostic systems became unreliable, leading to treatment errors. Defense systems malfunctioned, leaving worlds vulnerable to the ongoing Vrexian attacks. On the edge of Council space, the small colony of New Haven faced catastrophe when its atmospheric processors failed. The colonists discovered backup systems installed by human engineers decades earlier. These simple, robust systems had been running silently alongside the main processors, ready to activate in case of emergency. "The humans built these backups into every system they touched," reported Colony Administrator Jesh. "They knew our technology might fail without them." The Meraxi species, who had maintained better relations with humans than most Council races, recovered documents showing that humans had repeatedly warned about technological vulnerabilities. The warnings had been ignored or dismissed as human inadequacy in understanding advanced technology. "We didn't realize what they were really saying," said Meraxi Elder Pell. "When humans pointed out flaws in our systems, we thought they were showing their ignorance. In reality, they were identifying critical weaknesses we couldn't see ourselves." Pride had been the Council's downfall. The Valthrians and Scathuri, considering themselves the most advanced species, had dismissed human innovations as crude and unnecessary. They had failed to recognize that human technology, while appearing less sophisticated, prioritized reliability and adaptability. "Humans built systems that could be fixed," explained Technician Vela to the Council. "Our systems were designed to never break, which meant when they did break, no one knew how to repair them." As advanced Council technologies continued to fail, species were forced to abandon their most sophisticated systems in favor of simpler, more reliable alternatives. Many of these alternatives were based on human designs that had been previously rejected as primitive. The irony wasn't lost on Council President Jurna. "We judged human technology as inferior because it wasn't as elegant or advanced as ours. Now we see they understood something we didn't. That technology should serve its users, not the other way around." The technological regression pushed Council civilization back decades, and the gap between their current capabilities and what they once possessed grew wider each day. 3 years after the humans departed, the once unified Galactic Council began to fracture. Ancient rivalries resurfaced as resources grew scarce. Border disputes erupted between species that had maintained peace for centuries. In the Council chamber, representatives who once debated politely now shouted accusations at each other. The Valthrians blamed the Scathuri for hoarding resources. The Scathuri accused the Meraxi of withholding critical medical technology. Smaller species found themselves caught between powerful rivals, forced to choose sides. "This is madness," said Council Mediator Trell as he watched another session dissolve into chaos. "We've maintained diplomatic relations for 800 years. How could it unravel so quickly?" The answer came from an unexpected source. While reviewing diplomatic archives, Junior Archivist Nell discovered thousands of unofficial meetings between human diplomats and representatives from various council species. "Look at this," she told Trell, displaying a schedule from former human ambassador Samantha Pierce. She was holding meetings almost constantly, speaking with conflicting parties separately, then bringing them together. Further investigation revealed that human diplomats had been quietly mediating dozens of conflicts unknown to the council leadership. They had established unofficial channels between rival species, created neutral zones for sensitive discussions, and developed protocols for resolving disputes before they escalated. They were the buffer, Trell realized, not just militarily against the Vrexians, but diplomatically between all of us. The Council Security Division found evidence that human diplomatic protocols were still running in background systems throughout Council space. These automated systems had continued resolving minor disputes for years after the humans left, but were now failing without maintenance. Humans understood something fundamental about interspecies relations that we missed. Trell explained to an emergency session of the Council. While we focused on formal treaties and official positions, humans created informal connections that actually kept the peace. On border worlds where tensions were highest, researchers discovered human diplomatic outposts that had operated without official council recognition. These small stations had served as neutral meeting grounds where disputes could be resolved privately, saving both sides from public embarrassment. Elder Pell of the Meroxy brought forward records showing that humans had mediated 15 separate conflicts between the Valthrians and Scathuri that might have escalated to war. Neither side knew the humans were working with their rivals, Pell explained. The humans allowed both sides to believe they had won concessions. The discovery stunned the Council. How could a species so new to galactic politics understand our conflicts better than we did? Asked Council President Jurna. Because they were outsiders, replied Trell. They had no ancient grudges, no cultural biases about any council species. They could see patterns we couldn't because we were too close to our own histories. Most surprising was the revelation that human diplomats had studied the psychology and biology of each council species, developing unique approaches for each. They understood that Valthrian aggression was often a response to perceived threats to status. They recognized that Scathuri needed precise logical frameworks for negotiations. They knew that Meroxy required emotional connection before practical discussion. Humans were more observant than we gave them credit for, admitted Jurna. They watched how we behaved and adapted their approach accordingly. Ancient enemies like the Valthrians and Druithi, who had fought 3 wars before joining the Council, now found themselves sliding toward conflict again. The subtle human interventions that had maintained peace were gone, leaving raw hostility exposed. Diplomatic channels that had seemed stable for centuries revealed their fragility. Trading partners became competitors. Alliance systems that had functioned for generations collapsed within months. A final troubling discovery came from diplomatic archives. Humans had predicted this exact outcome. Ambassador Samantha Pierce had written in her final report, "Without ongoing mediation, ancient conflicts will resurface within 3 years. The Council races do not understand how much of their stability relies on constant diplomatic maintenance." As diplomatic relations crumbled, military posturing increased. Council races began diverting resources from the Vrexian defense to protect themselves from former allies. The unified front against external threats weakened as internal divisions grew stronger. "We never appreciated what the humans were doing," Trell told an almost empty council chamber. They weren't just members of the council, they were its caretakers. 4 years after the human departure, a Meroxy science vessel made a discovery that changed everything. While exploring abandoned human outposts near the edge of the galaxy, they detected unusual energy readings coming from what appeared to be an automated sensor array. "It's still active," reported Captain Jura, as her crew approached the massive structure. "This isn't just a sensor platform. It's a defense grid stretching across 50 light years." The Meroxy team managed to access the system's data logs. What they found sent shockwaves through what remained of the Council. The sensors had been monitoring something approaching from beyond the galactic rim. Something ancient and hostile that made the Vrexian threat seem trivial by comparison. The humans called them the Harvesters, Jura explained to the Emergency Council session. According to their data, these entities consume all organic and technological matter in their path, leaving dead zones where nothing can survive for thousands of years. The council chamber fell silent as images appeared on the display screens. The Harvesters resembled massive organic mechanical hybrids, planet-sized entities surrounded by swarms of smaller craft. The human sensors had tracked their slow but steady approach toward council space. "Why didn't the humans tell us about this threat?" demanded Councillor Vex. Elder Pell of the Meroxy stood slowly. "They did. Many times." Council archivists retrieved records of 23 formal presentations by human representatives over their 30 years of membership. Each presentation warned about an extinction-level threat approaching from the galactic rim. Each time, the Council had dismissed the warnings as human dramatics or misinterpretation of sensor data. "The humans didn't just know about the Harvesters," explained Science Officer Krell. "They were preparing for them. Everything they did, their rapid technological advancement, their military buildup, their diplomatic initiatives, it was all preparation for this threat." Archaeological teams exploring abandoned human worlds found massive underground bunkers, advanced weapon prototypes, and research facilities dedicated to studying the Harvesters. The evidence suggested humans had known about this threat before they even joined the Council. "This explains why humans were so interested in Council technology," said Krell. "They weren't trying to steal our advancements. They were looking for anything that might help against the Harvesters." Council President Jurna ordered a complete search of all diplomatic records. The investigation uncovered private communications between human General Alan West and representatives from several non-council species. These communications revealed that humans had been forming a coalition of species to prepare for the Harvester arrival. "The humans left the Council because we wouldn't listen," Jurna realized. "They couldn't afford to waste any more time trying to convince us." Most disturbing was the revelation that the Vrexian attacks, economic collapse, technological failures, and diplomatic breakdown were all predicted in human contingency plans. The humans had foreseen exactly how their departure would affect the Council and had tried repeatedly to prevent these outcomes. "Look at these dates," said Elder Pell, displaying records from human diplomatic archives. "The humans began warning us about the Harvesters 5 years before they joined the Council. Their membership was an attempt to gain our help against this threat." The Council races realized with growing horror that they had squandered 30 years of preparation time. While they had dismissed humans as primitive newcomers, humanity had been building defenses against an enemy the Council didn't even know existed. At the abandoned human military outpost on Proxima IV, researchers found a sealed message from General Alan West. "To whoever finds this, the Harvesters cannot be reasoned with or appeased. They harvest all advanced life in cycles that last millions of years. We believe your cycle has begun. We tried to help you prepare. Time ran out." The message included coordinates for the massive defense grid the humans had built at the galaxy's edge. The grid was designed to slow the Harvester approach, but without ongoing maintenance, it would fail within 5 years. "The humans knew they couldn't defeat the Harvesters alone," explained Krell. "They needed the combined resources and technology of all Council species. When we refused to believe them, they had no choice but to leave and prepare on their own." Council scientists estimated that the Harvesters would reach Council space within 10 years. Without human assistance, they had no effective defense strategies against an enemy they barely understood. "We mocked them as primitives," Jurna said quietly. "But they were the only ones who saw what was coming. They tried to save us from ourselves." 5 years after the humans departed, What remained of the Galactic Council gathered in emergency session. The once grand chamber now showed signs of neglect. Power fluctuations caused the lights to dim periodically. Only 14 of the original 27 species were represented. "We have no choice," said Council President Jurna, her voice echoing in the half-empty room. "We must find the humans and request their return." The decision came after months of debate. Pride had kept many council races from admitting their desperate situation. The Vrexians had claimed 12 council worlds. Economic systems continued to collapse. The harvester threat grew closer with each passing day. "How do we find them?" asked Councillor Vex. "They left no forwarding coordinates. They've established no contact since their departure." Elder Pell of the Meraxi, now one of the few voices of stability in the council, stepped forward. "I believe they left us a way to reach them." Search teams scoured abandoned human outposts across former council space. They found nothing until a Meraxi archaeological expedition to the human solar system made a discovery. Orbiting Earth's moon, they found a small, dormant satellite unlike any known human technology. "It's a beacon," reported expedition leader Krell, "but it appears to require a specific activation sequence." For weeks, council technicians attempted to activate the beacon using various codes and signals. Nothing worked until Science Officer Tella noticed a small inscription on the beacon's surface. "It's written in the human language called English," she explained. "It says, 'To activate, speak truth.'" The council debated what truth the humans might require. They sent hundreds of messages acknowledging various facts about human contributions to the council, but the beacon remained dormant. Ancient Meraxi sage Zella, who had personally known several human diplomats, requested permission to send her own message. "The humans were not just preparing for the harvesters," she told the council. "They were testing us. Every crisis we faced since their departure was predicted in their contingency plans." Zella's message to the beacon was simple. "We were wrong. Our pride blinded us to your wisdom. The council acknowledges its hubris in dismissing human warnings and contributions. We need you. Please return." The beacon activated. A holographic message appeared, showing former Ambassador Nathan Cole. "If you're receiving this message, you've taken the first step toward redemption. The Galactic Council must vote unanimously to request human assistance and acknowledge that all species require cooperation for survival." For the first time in its history, the council vote was unanimous. The beacon transmitted their response into deep space. 3 days passed with no response. Council members began to lose hope. "Perhaps they're too far away," suggested Vex, "or perhaps they no longer care about our fate." On the 4th day, long-range sensors detected something at the edge of the solar system. A massive fleet of ships unlike any seen before emerged from what appeared to be a dimensional fold in space. The ships bore the emblem of Earth, but incorporated technologies far beyond what humans had possessed when they left Council space. The lead vessel transmitted a message. "This is Captain Laura Bennett of the Earth Alliance Ship Restoration. Operation Prodigal Return is now active. Stand by for diplomatic party." In the council chamber, representatives waited anxiously as human diplomats entered for the first time in 5 years. Their uniforms were different, their technology clearly advanced, but their expressions remained the same, determined yet compassionate. A woman stepped forward. "I am Admiral Julie Barnes, representing the Human Alliance. We've been monitoring your situation. The Harvester Vanguard is 8 years from your borders. The Vrexian conflict has reached a critical stage. Your economic and technological systems are on the verge of complete collapse. Can you help us?" asked Jurna, desperation evident in her voice. Admiral Barnes nodded. "That's why we left the beacon. Humans never abandoned this galaxy. We've been preparing. While the Council dismissed our warnings, we built defenses, developed new technologies, and formed alliances with species beyond Council space." "Why help us after we rejected you?" asked Vex. "Because that's what humans do," replied Barnes. "We protect those who cannot protect themselves, even when they don't believe they need protection." As the human fleet moved into position around the solar system, activation signals triggered dormant systems throughout former Council space. Defense platforms came online. Communication networks reestablished themselves. Supply caches opened. 1 year after humanity's return, the galactic landscape had transformed. Human ships patrolled Council space alongside vessels from species the Council had never encountered before. The Human Alliance had brought 17 new allies from beyond the galactic rim, each with their own reasons to fear the Harvesters. "They're unlike anything we imagined," said Councillor Vex as he watched a holographic simulation of Harvester tactics. The command center, built by humans within 3 months of their return, hummed with activity as species that once distrusted each other worked side by side. Admiral Julie Barnes stood at the central platform, directing preparations across 50 systems. Under her leadership, the fractured Council had united with a single purpose: survival. "The first wave will reach these coordinates in 30 days, she announced, highlighting a sector near the former Vrexian border. "All civilian populations must be evacuated by then." The Vrexians themselves had been neutralized through an unexpected strategy. Rather than continuing the costly war, humans had deployed specialized bioengineering to modify the Vrexian hive mind. The once hostile species now served as scouts against the Harvester threat. "How did you develop this level of technology so quickly?" asked Science Officer Krell as he examined a human quantum shield generator. Chief Engineer Ryan Powell smiled. "We didn't develop it quickly. We've been working on Harvester countermeasures for over a century. Even before we contacted the Council, Earth knew they were coming." This revelation stunned the Council representatives. Humanity had known about the Harvesters before they achieved faster-than-light travel. Their entire technological development had been focused on this threat. On the frontier world of New Hope, Human Defense Coordinator Eric Wilson supervised the installation of massive energy cannons. Local Meroxy workers marveled at how he treated them as equals despite the Council's past dismissal of humans. "Why don't you resent us?" asked a young Meroxy engineer. "We ignored your warnings for decades." Eric adjusted a power coupling before answering. "Resentment doesn't stop Harvesters. Besides, Earth made the same mistake once. We ignored our own prophets who warned about the Harvesters 500 years ago." The first engagement with the Harvester Vanguard occurred in the binary system of Procyon. 3 planet-sized entities surrounded by clouds of smaller craft emerged from dimensional space. The combined fleet of human and Council ships met them with weapons specifically designed to target Harvester biology. The battle lasted 6 days. When it ended, 2 Harvester entities had been destroyed, and the third retreated. The victory came at a heavy cost: 37 ships lost, including 12 human vessels. In the Council chamber, now thriving again under human guidance, Admiral Barnes displayed the battle records. "This was just their scouting force," she explained. "The main Harvester fleet contains hundreds of these entities. How can we possibly win against such numbers?" asked Zherna. "By working together," Barnes replied. "Humans alone couldn't defeat them. The Council alone couldn't defeat them. But together, with our new allies, we have a fighting chance." The true nature of humanity's departure finally became clear. They hadn't left out of anger or resentment. They had left to forge new alliances and develop technologies that the Council would have rejected or interfered with. Every step had been calculated to prepare for this war. Captain Laura Bennett stood on the observation deck of the Restoration, watching as ships from 23 different species maneuvered in perfect formation. The sight would have been impossible 5 years earlier. "Was it worth it?" asked her first officer. "Leaving the Council, knowing what would happen to them." Bennett's expression remained solemn. "We gave them every chance to prepare with us. When they refused, we had to let them experience the consequences of their pride. It was the only way they would be ready to truly join us when the time came." Across Council space, humans worked alongside former rivals, transferring knowledge, building defenses, and preparing populations for the coming storm. The cooperation that had seemed impossible during the Council's golden age now emerged from necessity. As the main harvester fleet approached, humanity stood not as conquerors returning in triumph, but as equals offering a chance at survival. The lesson they had taught the Council, that no species could stand alone against the darkness between stars, would determine the fate of all.